Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Caseware webinar. Today we are looking at the cloud audit updates that have happened over or throughout this year. Quite a lot has happened to the cloud audit apps for Caseware this year, and we just wanted to provide a webinar that was kind of off schedule. We have our regular webinars that we run every year on certain topics, but we thought it'd be a good time to present a roundup of the updates that have enhanced the apps over the last year. You may be aware of them, you may not. I say we. My name's Tom Jeffrey. I'm the Senior Education and Media Technician at Caseware UK. I'm just going to be keeping an eye on the session, making sure it runs smoothly today, and going through housekeeping, checking your questions, that kind of thing. In terms of the content, James Clarkson, Senior Professional Services Consultant at Caseware UK, is going to be taking you through that. Also, Cloud Audit Oracle, not officially in his job title, but probably should be. James is going to be taking you through the content and also fielding any questions that you have. So I'm going to jump to the housekeeping slide. You've probably seen this before, and that is for submitting your questions. You've got the Q&A option on the toolbar there. Just submit your question. We'll do our best to answer it live. If we don't, then we'll get back to you after the session within a couple of days. We'll also include it on a Q&A document that will accompany the recording of the session. So we are recording. That's going to go onto our YouTube channel, also onto our knowledge base. We'll signpost those at the end if you weren't aware of those or you're not sure where they are. And again, any questions, keep them coming right up until the end or even afterwards. So I'll jump to the agenda slide and I'll pass over to James and we'll get started.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join today's webinar. As Tom said, it's going to be quite a broad look at various different areas of the Caseware Cloud platform. Looking at all the updates, or not all the updates, some of the updates and changes that have come along over the past year. For anyone using financials as well, some of these updates are at a general platform level, so they will also apply to financials too. But hopefully going to be highlighting what I think some of the key updates that have come out over the past year to really enhance the way you work within the platform, making your day-to-day work a bit easier. So you can see a list of what we're covering on the screen. I have put data analytics and group audit in just at the end. It's not going to be a fully detailed walkthrough of those, but for anyone who wasn't able to attend the webinar that was hosted on Monday, where Jonathan Miller from our product team went through data analytics and group audit changes in full detail, I thought it'd be useful just to give you a very brief introduction to the changes there, and so that you can go and rewatch or watch the recording of the webinar from Monday. But I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into it. Replace the current share and let me pick out which screen I want to use. There we go. Okay, so I'm in our UK company Mercia template here, but most of the changes we're going through actually apply to any of the audit templates that you will have access to. The exceptions being around the specifics around template changes for data analytics. They're not in all the templates yet. And group audit, when we come to mention it, that's not in our pensions template, but that has been added to the other templates already. So I've got an audit engagement here. I've got some things that I've pre-completed just to save time during the webinar. I've set some materiality. I haven't yet brought in data. So I will need to bring that in. And that's the first place where there have been some changes that have been made. So I'll come to my data screen. If you hadn't noticed, just to highlight it, we have a lot more data connectors now available. Pretty much everything that's available currently has been enabled, so you will be able to search for a particular connector to possibly import trial balance data directly from another piece of software. For many of these, you can also import transactional data as well, because some of the things we're going to look at will be using our general ledger. So for a number of these, I know you can do that too. But But the first change really is around our data file importing. So if I'm importing a Excel or CSV file and I've got one on another screen that I'll just find and drag across and drop it in. So you'll be familiar with the import screen, so I'm not going to explain what I'm doing, but I'll say it's a trial balance and we'll go ahead and get it uploaded. Now, when I come to configure, you come in, you assign your columns. I'll use the little AI function up at the top. And this is sort of the first change I wanted to mention. You'll only come across it if you do have errors in your trial balance imports, for obvious reasons. But you get an error message telling me that I've got an issue with this trial balance I'm trying to import. So I can't actually press import and proceed. When you see this now, when you select it, it will tell you what the error is. I've got some duplicate account numbers within my trial balance, but even more helpfully, when I select that, it will tell me what those duplicate account numbers are. It shows me them on screen, so I know where in my trial balance I need to go back and amend the account numbers. So quite a minor change there, but really helpful where you do have errors, helps you identify them a bit more quickly. So I'm just going to go and remove that import, and we'll just come back and I shall import one where I've removed the duplicates, and we'll just get the trial balance data in. I'll come in and configure, assign my columns, and go ahead and import. You'll see I've got financial groups listed in here as well. So all these accounts will automatically be assigned just on the import. Another useful thing you could do if you prefer to assign accounts within Excel. Now I'm also going to import some general ledger data. So it's not new, but it is linked to importing data for at the Analytics Hub, running our data analytics tests, and it's also linked through to general ledger completeness, which is a new feature that I do want to show you. So I'll come to add data, and I'll drag across a CSV file that's got general ledger data set in it. From our dataset type, you'll see the different datasets that can be imported within the list. I'll say it's a general ledger and go and upload. Now, when you're importing other datasets, you go through the same process of configuring the import, saying what is in each column. But within this, in your general ledger, you are going to have a lot more columns in than a normal trial balance import. So you can go through and allocate them column by column. I would recommend using the AI function up at the top to automatically assign the columns, but of course do then verify that it's made the right selections. You'll see at the top right, I've got no data layouts available at the moment. Up here, once you've imported a general ledger, and you've assigned all your columns, if it's likely that you're going to be importing that sort of format of a general ledger again, you are able to save the column allocation. And that would mean that instead of assigning columns and checking them, you'd be able to select the data layout at the top. So this could be called, I don't know, my general ledger, whatever. Next time I import the general ledger, I could just select it and it will assign all the columns for me. So that's there. We can't save it until we actually import it. So I'll run the import and then just show you where that save option is so that you're able to save your layout, save a little bit of time. Well, actually, while it's loading, we can see it on the trial balance. If I want to save the layout of this trial balance, I can press save here. I'll be asked to give it a name. Yeah, and then it would be available up at the top right just to select instead of repeating the same column assignment multiple times. And that's not just in this engagement, it would be available, it will be available in other engagements you create as well. So we've got our trial balance, we've got our general ledger. So yeah, the first main update I want to show is around general ledger completeness. So it's available within, I believe, all our applications in the UK. On the data screen, on the left-hand side, there's a general ledger completeness option. And what this does, it looks at your trial balance figures, it looks at the transactions that you've got in your general ledger, and it calculates what it's expecting our final trial balance for the current period to be. And it will compare it to what we've got in our final trial balance for the period and let us know where we've got differences. So to use this, it does rely on firstly having a trial balance and a general ledger imported. It also relies on the trial balance or the accounts in the trial balance being assigned, um, so that obviously it can tell you what area you've got differences. So the table we view on the screen, I can see the prior period balances. So for balance sheet items, it uses the closing balance from our prior period trial balance. For our profit and loss items, it will start from nil because they're the accumulation of transactions within the year. We then have the totals from our general ledger. These would be an account level, but linked through to the mapping from our trial balance or the account assignment from our trial balance. And it combines these to calculate what the final trial balance should be for this year, compares it to what our final trial balance actually is, and tells us where we have the difference. Where we've got differences, we can drill down through the financial groups until we come down to an account level. And at an account level, picked one with a lot of steps to run through there. At an account level, we can identify the specific account where what we're expecting our trial balance to be isn't what it is within our trial balance. So I've now got a difference there that I can go away and investigate what the cause of it is. Now, you can export these results. CSV export comes out very quickly. It is very representative of what you see on the screen. Tells you your account numbers, your financial groups they're allocated to, and then you've got the same columns repeated. And indeed on here, I can come in, I can add further notes, I can save this down, load it into my working papers on the document screen, and use it to support completeness of the general ledger. Okay. Now, there has been another change to imports this year as well, and this one is mainly relevant to those who are also using our financials app, but I did want to show you how it works as well. And it's a way of, well, within Caseware Cloud, the audit applications and the financials applications used for accounts prep, they're two separate applications. But naturally, you would want to share a trial balance from the accounts to the audit engagement. So you're not having to repeat all your posting of adjustments. You're not having to repeat your account assignment. So I've got a clean file ready just to demonstrate this. And this is what we call our sync TB feature, syncing the trial balance between two different applications. So within this file, I can come to data. And this is going to be an audit engagement where I've got a financials file already set up, already got data in. Someone else has been working on the accounts, and I want to pull that trial balance data into my audit engagement, as well as any adjustments that have been posted. So I'm going to be importing from another Caseware Cloud engagement. And in here, we can search for the engagement. Now I know I've got one saved on another entity, so I'll just have to change the options just to make sure I find one with data in. If I selected this engagement at this point, it will copy across the trial balance, it will do the account assignment for me, and it will copy any adjustments that are posted at that point in time. But that would be a point in time copy. To enable them to sync and stay in sync, I would need to select this sync trial balance option. Turn that toggle on, then select the engagement, and then I can go ahead and import. It takes a few moments to actually process, but I will then be able to press import. And I get a message telling me that it's going to copy the account assignments, so the financial groups they're allocated to. For any balances and any adjustments, they will be synced from the financials file into the audit engagement. So any adjustments we later post into our financials file, they will sync through into this particular audit engagement. The account assignments, where we've mapped the trial balance to the financial groups, that is a point in time copy. So if we did update the account assignment within our financials file, we would need to also make the update within the audit engagement. So that's a point in time sort of copy, but all the balances and adjustments are kept in sync. So when I import, this will take a moment to process, but then it will take us in. We see straight away I've got a net loss in this case, but I can see all my accounts on the account screen. It tells me what the source file is. That is a link to the source file. And I've got no accounts to assign. Everything has been assigned. For the adjustments, you'll see the adjustments that I have posted into that accounts file. So they have copied through as adjustments from the source. It gives me a link back to the source file again. So any changes I'd want to make to these adjustments, I would need to go back and make them in the source file. When new adjustments are posted, they will sync through. The sync refreshes around every 5 minutes, I believe, currently. So they might not appear immediately after you posted them, but certainly within a few minutes, they would then appear within the audit engagement. Okay. So that wraps it up on the data imports side of things, the main changes there. Want to have a little look at the document screen now. A lot of the work we'll do will be within the document screen, obviously completing the documentation, adding our audit test documents and supporting documentation and everything. And there have been some changes here as well. So I'm going to focus on this permanent file section first. You'll see the documents have been signed off at various points of completion, some just prepared, some have had the first reviewed stage sign off, but haven't been signed off by the manager yet. Others have been fully reviewed. And this first feature is in relation to being able to filter the document screen. And there's some quite useful filters included here. So the filters icon is at the top of this document section where we see the progress meters telling us what we've got left to do. But there's nothing within here that actually shows me these are the documents I've got left. So within the filters, use the filter icon next to the print icon. You can come in and you see a small selection of filters that can be applied. Anyone preparing an audit engagement, what's really nice is just to see what you've got left to do. Well, we can filter by documents that haven't been signed off as prepared. And it updates, and now all those that I've marked as prepared have disappeared. So I've just got 3 things left to do in the permanent file. If you're an RI, or if you always sign off documents using a particular sign off in the sign off scheme, you can filter the documents to see only those that have those required or that required sign off role. So if I was an RI in this case, I can see documents currently in the file that need the RI review on them. And that filters quite nicely. For reviewers, there is an unsigned by reviewer filter. You need to be a little bit careful with it because it depends on the stage of review. What this is looking at is in my sign-off scheme, I've got 2 review stages. This filter is just looking at any documents that have been fully reviewed. So every stage in that sign-off scheme has been signed off. So in my documents here, I've got 3 that have been partly reviewed and 3 that have been fully reviewed. If I filter by unsigned by reviewer, you'll see I keep the 3 showing that have been partly reviewed because that review stage hasn't yet been completed. But still useful, particularly where you are the last reviewer of a document, to filter using that one. Now, there is an additional filter on here that I want to mention. You don't see it at the moment, but that relates to issues. So what happens if we get some review points? I'll just raise an issue here. This will be a review point, and I'll just make sure it's a review type and go and create, and I'll raise another issue somewhere else. Let's go for our sample calculation. I appreciate it has not been prepared, but we'll have another review point here. And I'll come in and filter or set that to review. So when you have got some open issues on the file, you get a filter added into the menu for open issues, documents with open issues. So you can use the issue screen, of course, to work through your issues, but some of you might find this useful as well, particularly after a file's been reviewed and you have a number of points to work through and clear. We can filter the documents to see only those with open issues. And in this view, I can select the issue. I can see what the issue is. I can go into the document, make the changes and everything, resolve and clear the issue. And then, yeah, I would need to apply the filter again in this particular case, but then I've got my next issue there to work through. So hopefully that will help you in, well, knowing what's left to complete within your files, helping to identify documents with issues a little bit quicker, and just generally make it a little bit easier to work within the document screen. Now, looking at types of documents themselves, have I got lead schedule showing? I have got lead schedule showing. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail here. This is more to mention the feature there. There are certain times, particularly in certain firms, where someone might come into a lead schedule and you might look to make some changes to the lead schedule. You might edit it to change the view. You might want to change the columns that are included across the top. But sometimes when you're editing lead schedules, you can get in a bit of a muddle with certain settings, and yeah, it can be a little bit difficult to unpick to get back to what it was. So I'm not going to cover editing. Tom, who's on the session with me, and one of my colleagues, Phil, they did a good webinar probably about a month ago on editing these tables that you see within the lead schedules. So that's available on YouTube if you want to revisit that one. But what has been introduced from in the three dots button is a revert to template default. So if I do make a lot of changes and get in a bit of a muddle and just want to scrap everything and reset it back to what it was to start off with, I can select revert to template default, and that will undo everything and put it back as it was originally. So that's, again, quite a minor feature, but can save some time if you are making edits that ultimately don't work in the end. Other types of documents we'll work with. PDF documents. I should have a PDF document uploaded into my permanent file. So PDF documents, everyone will be familiar with the fact that we can annotate PDF documents. We can add an annotation wherever we want to reference whatever it is we want to reference, another document, add a note, whatever it might be. But there's still instances, and we do still get asked about being able to highlight key things. Maybe I want to highlight the date here, or the invoice number, or a purchase order number if it's quoted on here, something like that. Well, in the past, there was always an option to copy a link for the PDF document that would let you open the PDF document in an editor. So there would be a link icon up at the top that you'd select. You'd press OK to a confirmation, and then you'd have to go and paste that link into the open field of the editor. Well, now that link icon's been replaced with an open option. And using this, you now get the choice. We can still copy the URL if we want to, but we get the option to open the file locally. Now, using this option does require an additional small install of an add-in. I think it's called an add-in or extension to whatever browser you're using. When you go to open the file locally, it will pop up and tell you what it needs. You can follow the link through, download the add-in. I should already have it installed, so I should be able to say open and then say, yes, I'll confirm I want to open the edit document opener. There is a little checkbox there, so you don't have to see that pop up every time, but I'll leave it on for demonstrations like this. And what this will do, it will take a moment, but it should open the document for me in Adobe. And there we go. So this is the document that is saved on cloud. I can come in, I can make edits to the document. I can highlight whatever it is I wanted to highlight. If you really want to, you can draw on it. Whatever changes you want, you can add comments and everything. But ultimately, it's a much easier way of opening these documents to make edits. Once we're done, from the menu, I'll press save. I'll choose the most recent location that comes up in the list. Save over the document that's there. We'll see the little saving icon there. Close it down. And then when I refresh my screen, we should see those highlights pull through. There we go. So it's a much quicker, like I say, much easier way of actually opening the PDFs. A few less clicks involved. Just open up at the top right and open file locally. Okay, so let's move on to Excel documents. What have we changed around Excel documents? Well, I've got an Excel document here. I'm going to click in and open. Within this Excel, well, for Excel documents that you have saved within engagement files, there is an Excel add-in that can be used. Now, I should specify there are some licensing requirements behind this. Um, so yeah, you'd speak to your account manager if you're interested, because the licenses are required just to enable the connection between the add-in and your cloud platform. But what it does, it adds this data link option into my home tab. Okay, and there's been a number of enhancements made to the data available to be pulled through into Excel using this Cloud Connector tool. So I'll select Data Link and it will populate. Cloud Connector on the right has now 3 different tabs to it. It only used to have 2, but there's been the addition of a hyperlink tab. But I could use this to create a working paper, automating a lot of the different figures, a lot of the values within here, and then I could save that working paper down, take it into another engagement file, and everything would automatically update for it. So I'd be starting on the Properties tab just with the basics that I'd set out at the top. So I would have my operating name showing. I would have my year-end date, probably. Well, not probably, I pretty much would. I'd need to format it. Yes, that's the standard functionality. Right-click and format. Within the trial balance section, let's say I'm doing a schedule of non-current assets just because it's at the top of my list here. So I can put in a title for non-current assets. Let me bring that through, and then I just need to go through and find them. I'm not going to go into loads of detail with this, but we can outline our freehold property. I'm going to leave a little bit of space, current year balance, prior year balance, and I'll just throw in the plant and machinery as well. I won't go any further than that because you don't need to sit and watch me repeatedly adding things into Excel. And again, we can format these to get the presentation we want. Now, to make it a bit more useful, I'd jump back to properties and I would add in my dates, my current year, and my prior year. Okay, so so far, that's all standard functionality that's been in Cloud Connector for a while anyway. What's new? Well, these items have come specifically from requests, firstly. So the ability to add more data in, connect more data through, such as preliminary balances, the balance of adjustments, or eliminating journal entries. Well, now we get an option at the top of the Cloud Connector pane to select the display balances. And if I come in here, you can see that for the current year, I can choose to include planning balances if I want to, preliminary balances, adjustments, and eliminating balances as well if we're looking at consolidation. Now what that does, it adds the balances, whoops, didn't mean to click the filter there, adds the balances in to the list within here, which I could search to get back to where I was, but I'm just going to try and, there we go, need to expand that one. So I can now bring in my preliminary balances, balance of adjustments for each, so that when I come in, I update this particular schedule, do whatever review I'm doing with it, adjustments, and yeah, everything will automatically update. So as we post adjustments, we'll see them flow through into the adjustments field. We'll see the final balances update, but our preliminary balances is sort of saved in there. The other enhancement that was made to Cloud Connector, which this one was a bit earlier in the year than the addition of these balances, is on the hyperlink tab. So the hyperlink tab itself is new, and it shows you all the documents that are included within your documents manager. Well, I say all the documents. There is a slight limitation here at the moment in that it's not going to bring in Word documents or Excel documents, but it will show you your PDFs. It will show you all the Caseware standard documentation. And if I wanted to link from my plant and machinery here to that particular invoice, I can just select it and it will add the hyperlink in for me. And selecting that hyperlink would take me through to open that particular document. And it's the same for any of the other standard documents that you'll see within here. If I want to link through to something else, I can just select it, tie it back to a lead schedule, okay, and it adds the hyperlink. And again, following the link would open that document. So there's real time saving that can be gained from using that in terms of putting links. While there is the limitation of not being able to use it for Excel documents currently, we can still right click and copy the link address to create those links ourselves, but linking to any PDFs or standard documents are really useful. Okay, so let me just save that down. And that's the changes we made to Cloud Connector. And it's going to ask me to save again. Okay. So I'm just going to come on to some changes around the risk assessment. There's been a couple of changes here. And I'm going to come to the risk and controls screen at the top to view them. Main change I'd actually listed to include within here, it was only released a week or so ago, week or two ago maybe, and that's on the assessment tab. And yeah, coincidentally, I was at a CPD session on, what was it, Tuesday afternoon, I think. And this update is actually really useful in terms of one of the points that was mentioned there, in terms of coming from an ICAEW monitoring report about not having enough justification on the file for any sort of low areas, audit areas that are assessed as having low materiality, or particularly for certain assertions. So it hasn't been much of a change to the risk assessment itself. You still work through the same process to complete it, deselect any assertions that you don't consider relevant to this particular audit, and then go through and set our likelihood and magnitude of misstatement, consider our control risk to get our risk of material misstatement. But the changes are actually on the right hand side here. Previously, you just had one field down at the bottom to justify the risk levels that you have set for each assertion. Just the one field. So it can take a little bit of perhaps scrolling up and down, depending on how zoomed in your screen is, to go through, check what you put, come back down. Yeah, it takes a little bit of effort to actually go in and complete it. Well, now we've got annotation icons added to every single row of the risk assessment so that you are able to use the blue plus button to come in, set the purpose. Well, we could link back to another document, I suppose, if we wanted to. But I could just add a note and I can add my justification about the risk levels I've set within here. So my likelihood of misstatement and justification, and my magnitude of misstatement and justification. And within these notes, I'm sure you're aware, you get the ability to add in bullet points if you want to, number things, and you've text formatting to highlight certain things. But we can come in and we can save it, and then you get that note indicator on the right. So someone can hover over it to see what's written. Quite handy just in itself, but if you put a lot of text in, there's too much in there for the hover over. But then clicking on it, it will give you a scroll bar down on the side in this extra panel, so you can scroll up and down and review the justification that's been added. So it allows you to make your justification clearer, um, specifically linked to each assertion, and it makes it easier to complete that justification while I can actually see what I've scored something on the screen without being down at the bottom of this whole panel. So quite a small change there, but one that is quite significant for our risk assessments here. The other change that you may have noticed if you worked on any new engagements is the risks themselves. If I expand a risk, you will see the ability to perform a risk assessment for this particular assertion level risk within this risk card itself. Now, currently, these aren't linked through to the B31 documents, which is where Mercia's documentation for assessing the assertion level risks. So these aren't currently linked through. But the product team are looking at how these can interact with the B31 documents and if the B31 documents are even still required. So product team are investigating that currently because this is quite a new feature again that has just come in. Okay, so just to touch now on the changes that came in that were talked about within Jonathan Miller's and Jack Holloway's webinar on Monday. So for more detail, refer back to it. But just because we're talking about updates, these are some of the more significant updates that have come to the platform this year. So our Analytics Hub, this is the first update. It was released, available in the product from, I think, around February this year. But there wasn't much in it initially because it relied on us as users of the platform, as firms, to go in and actually link analytics tests to procedures ourselves within our template. Um, so because of that, it will have taken a little bit of time for anyone to really go in and have a look at it. Now, Mercia's latest update, so this is just in the UK template at the moment. Mercia's latest update, or I should say UK company, sorry, has had more of an emphasis on using data analytics. So what that's allowed us to do is it's allowed us to actually link Caseware's standard analytics tests through to procedures within Mercia's documentation. And whereas before had to rely on firm administrators going into settings, editing the template to do that. So I'm not going to go through it in a huge amount of detail here, but it all starts with our B21 data analytics assessment document. At the top, we consider if data analytics is applicable to use in this engagement, and then we confirm if it is or not. You then get these questions asking, where are we going to use it? And I've specifically just selected to highlight higher risk journals, unusual transactions and things here. You then need to do some sort of appraisal of the application you're using, making sure we understand the steps that application goes through, how it is producing the results and everything. And you've got all the fields within the B21 to do that, to go through and complete. But crucially, this procedure that I've said yes to, this gives me more options within the B40 document. So on my documents map, if I come down to my B40, for every area within the B40, after being asked what audit program sections you want within the file, standard question there, you will now get asked where you've said you want to use data analytics within the engagement. Do you want to use an audit data analytics plan for this audit area? And these questions each have a separate document linked in the planning section. So I have answered it yes for the N section, our trial balance journal entry section of the file. So within my documents map, I have got the B40N ADA audit plan, trial balance, use of ADA, but there are separate documents included in here for every area. So in here, you get some questions. How are we scoring the risk criteria? Well, if we're using Caseware's functionality, we'll be applying it manually. And then we get to say what risk conditions are relevant in this particular engagement, and we can select from a list. There's a number of different things here that we can use. So the focus here is using the data analytics at the planning stage so that we are properly focusing our work on those high risk areas. So for each option we've selected here, we get a separate table beneath where we can set out our definition, set out our risk scoring and our justification within the fields provided. But crucially, each of these is linked through to our analytics tests, and you get these analytics tests icon on the right. Selecting this icon will take me into the Analytics Hub just with the tests linked to this procedure showing. If I went to Analytics Hub at this point directly, I would see all the tests that are visible within this particular engagement file. So I'd see all the tests that have been attached to all the procedures in this document, plus any other document that I have analytics tests in. So I can select the icon there and it takes us into the Analytics Hub. Now, when this populates, we will see the analytics tests that are linked to that particular procedure on the left. And on the right, we will see a place where we can configure the tests that we're going to run. So here you can see I've got 4 tests linked to that procedure. I've imported my general ledger. When you select a test, it comes up, we can filter our data set first. we can set some configuration up. So for an amount range, what is a high value? What is a low value? What range of transactions am I looking for here? We can select what fields we're looking at within our data set. You also get this sampling option. Now, this didn't exist originally when the Analytics Hub was first released. This is a new option that is optional. You don't have to select a sampling method here. If you pick a sampling method, it will select a sample of results for us based on the sample calculation. So if I wanted a random sample of results, I'd be able to specify my sample size in here. And the same for the others. But ultimately, you're going to be choosing the test that you want to run and then pressing run once the configuration's done. If you wanted to view all the tests linked to a specific data set to run however many there are all together, you can select and configure them all and then run them all together. What I'd be doing there is from the filters icon, I'd be coming in, I'd be looking at, well, my filters down at the bottom is filtered to the large value. I could just filter for my end section to bring in all the tests that are linked to all of those. And it's only actually added another couple within there. Some of them only had one test linked to. To view results, we select, we get a little preview of results. We can expand this to see them on screen. So these are tests or transactions highlighted or identified by my high value test. But I think what you're most likely to do is use the export function up at the top right, which will export the test results into CSV. The export does also include details of the test that was run, the configuration, who ran it, when it was run, what time, all these sorts of things. So they're all included at the top of the export as well. And you have got an aggregate results screen that purely because of time I won't go into now. As I said, this was just a quick mention of the update because it was quite a significant update in terms of integrating the tests with Mercia's methodology. For the group audit side, I have an engagement set up that has timed out, so I'll just refresh that just to show you what the group audit functionality is. So it's where we're providing an audit opinion on consolidated accounts. A group will be made up of certain different components, and as group auditors, we need to consider the amount of work that needs to be done on each component, so that we're confident in the group audit opinion that we're giving. Now, the update itself, let me come back to this file. From the company name, there's a drop-down arrow down at the bottom next to consolidation, and that gives you the ability to set this as a group audit file. When you do that, you get access to group hierarchy, and it's in here that first we have our consolidation at the top, and then we outline the separate components that make up the consolidated figures. So within here, again, I can add more. We add them using the 3 dots button to add in extra components. Just add a component, and this could be whatever component A, let's call it, and add that in, and it will be added into the list. Now, it's all based on, as group auditors, we will be assigning work that needs to be done on the components. So managing work is how we would go in and assign some work. Simple as manage work, assign work. We can assign risks. What risks are relevant? We can assign documents. So what documents contain work that need to be performed on this component? And typically it may well be the work programs. Just select a couple as an example. And when you see this little number appear, that's how many procedures have been allocated. But we can go in and we can remove procedures as well to cut down the procedures that are allocated. But crucially, we save and send this, and what it does is it creates a sort of sub-audit file within my main consolidation file for us to document the work that we're doing on components. So it's internal only for now, where we are performing the work on components, but the future plans are that we would be giving external component auditors access to the sub-file. To access that sub-file, we have a group audit component option, and we can come in, I can look at my components here, and I can say I want to go to that particular component, and I can save that down, and it takes me through, and I just see the work that's been assigned from the group auditors here or from the group audit file. These are copies of documents, so they're independent from the documents in the main group file, and I can go in and work on them, update accordingly. So I think, yeah, when I pass back to Tom, I think Tom's got a poll to run to see which of these features you'd like to see more of, if you'd like more detail, or if you did see John's webinar on Monday, hopefully that gave you enough information to go in and explore these features and functions. But yeah, I'll pass back to Tom for any questions or anything.
Thanks, James. And I think we're probably going to overrun by a few minutes just to make sure that we run that poll and cover a couple of questions. So if everyone's able to stay on for another few minutes, great. If you need to drop off to go to another meeting or have your lunch or any other commitments, don't worry. We are recording, so this will be available in the next couple of days. But yes, as James said, we have got a poll here, which is, I'm going to pop on the screen now. Hopefully you'll see that. And that is, future webinar topics. We are building out our schedule for, well, next year now, really. And as you can see, we're just asking whether you'd like to see group audit, so more detail on what James just showed you, data analytics, more detail there. We're already getting quite a few of you voting, so that's great. If your answer is something else, then just pop it into the Q&A, your idea. We've also got a survey which will pop up after the session, so you can pop it in there as well, or you can drop us an email. But I don't know, James, if you can see those results coming in, but so both good, but I think there's a bit more of an appetite for group audit content. I think it's probably fair to say it would be worth running both of those topics. But yeah, group audit, we've got a 40% of you so far saying yes, please on that one. 47% saying both. So we'll leave that open for a bit longer. We have got a couple of questions that I'm going to put to James. And that first one being, you mentioned about license requirements for the data add-in for Excel. Are there any license requirements for the PDF editor, or is that standard?
The PDF editor, no, there are no license requirements. It just requires the install of that little add-on for your browser.
Great.
Yeah, but that's freely available.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, we'll just go through this one and then we'll jump to the wrap up. So does the risk assessment on the risk tab link through to the assessment tab?
Okay. So there, I believe, let me come back to the file I was in earlier. There we go. So I believe you'd be talking about the risk assessment here on this risk tab and our risk assessment on this side. Currently, no, I don't believe there is a linkage between the risk assessment you perform here for an assertion level risk and the risk assessment that you perform for the area as a whole on the assessment tab. They are both different assessments, and I know that the risk assessment for an assertion level risk would impact on the assessment that we would perform for the area. But yeah, it doesn't pull through currently onto here. Perhaps, yeah, it may be useful to see a summary within this risk section. That's something I can feed back to the product team. But otherwise, you just get the risk indicator showing here so that you know you've got specific, in this case, significant assertion level risks that I would need to consider when I perform the assessment for the area as a whole.
Great, thanks, James. If you hopefully that answers the question. But if you would like any more information or you'd like us to get in touch with you directly, please let us know. And we'll also, as James said, feed that on to the product team. So I'm gonna nick the screen share off of you, James. So we're going to go back to the slides, and just to reiterate that you can log a question via the Q&A. You can do that right up until the end of the broadcast, but also there will be a survey afterwards. We'd very much appreciate you giving us your feedback on the session so that we can enhance future sessions, but there's also an opportunity in there to pop in any other questions. So very quick wrap up, you can get to our webinar schedule. That's the training team or education and media team sessions that we run throughout the year. But we also have quite a few marketing webinars that are sort of more sales focused perhaps, but there is a schedule of those on there as well. And you can register to attend and see the agendas. That's at the resources section at the top of our website, and then events.
Sorry,
YouTube.
Tom, did you share your slides again? to
I
talk about
didn't share my
logs.
slides. No, I said I was going to,
Yeah.
but I am obviously not sharing them. So let's try that again, shall we? Live webinar. I'm not sure if you can see those now. Hopefully you can.
I shall stop sharing on my side. Yes, they're there. Yep. Perfect.
Yeah, we'll cut that in the edit.
Yeah.
So, events page, you can register there and see the agendas. YouTube channel, so that's our Client Services Caseware UK channel. You can head there and you can subscribe and set your notifications and all the other YouTubey kind of stuff. But we have lots of playlists, including webinars, and with notifications, we'll of course let you know when there's new webinars and other videos added. And we'll be uploading this one in the next day or so. Not Saturday, of course, probably tomorrow. And then we've got our knowledge base at my.caseware.com. The majority of the guidance there is accessible without the need to log in, but you do have additional articles such as downloads, and more advanced technical information is available behind a login. And if you need one, you can speak to our support team and then they can advise on how to obtain some credentials. So finally, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar and found it useful. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much.